Today, I would like to focus on the threats to global prosperity and stability, thus our competitiveness, and the rise of protectionism. And as our domestic agenda cannot be seen separately from global developments around us, let me start with the US tariffs. When the dream of a united Europe began, it started with a very simple idea. Let's create one single market. Let's break barriers, take tariffs down. That is what made us strong. Because our companies grew, and so did the ties that bind us together. And then in the same spirit, today I would like to focus on the threats to global prosperity and United stability, States. Thus our competitiveness. We built strong connections and the rise of that protectionism. We believed were unbreakable. And as our domestic agenda more than cannot be seen separately from global developments around us, of life. Let me start and with commerce. The US our partnership tariffs. Has also grown. When the dream of a united Europe began, it started with a very simple and because of idea. This collective experience of the last almost 75 years, let's break barriers. So many take Europeans feel utterly that is what made us strong. By the announcement from because the United our companies States. Grew, and so did the ties Let me be clear. That bind Europe us did together. Not start this confrontation. And then in the same spirit, we think it is wrong with partners across the world. But my message to you including today is the United States that we have everything we build strong to protect our people we believe and our prosperity. Unbreakable. We have the largest single market more than in the prosperity. It brought the idea of a shared way of life. We have the power to push back. And with commerce, our and the people of Europe should know that together we will always promote and defend our interests and because of our values, this collective experience of the last almost 75 years. So many Europeans feel utterly disheartened by the announcement from the United States. So far, the US administration has announced a 25% increase of tariffs on imports of steel and aluminium. But my message to you today is that we have the next sectors facing tariffs will be semiconductors, our people and our prosperity, pharmaceuticals and timber. We have the largest single market in the world. And tomorrow we expect we have the strength to negotiate with so-called we have the power to push tariffs. That and the people of Europe should apply to almost that all together and we will many countries in the world. Promote and defend our interests and our values. Of course, and together we will always stand in the world of trade, without any question. Over capacities, we know about the imbalances. We see unfair subsidies, denial of market access. So far, the US administration has announced a 25% and I hear Americans when they say some others have taken advantage of and aluminium. Cars and car parts. We also suffer from it. The next sectors facing tariffs will be semiconductors, but tariffs across the board make things work. And tomorrow we expect another announcement. Tariffs are taxes that will be paid by the people. Tariffs are taxes for the Americans on their groceries and their medication. And many countries in the world. Tariffs will just fuel inflation. Exactly the opposite there of what we wanted to achieve in the world of trade. Without American factories will pay more for components that are produced in Europe. We see unfair subsidies, jobs, denial of market access, or the IP theft of new customs procedures. And I hear Americans when they say today some others have taken advantage of neither in the United States I agree, nor in Europe. We also suffer from it. Our strategy builds on three pillars. But first, tariffs across the board make things work. We will approach these negotiations from a position of strength. That will be paid by the people. Europe holds a lot of tariffs are taxes for the Americans on their groceries and their medication. From trade to technology to the size of our tariffs will just fuel inflation. But this strength is also built on our readiness to take firm countermeasures. American factories will pay more for components that are produced in Europe. This will cost jobs. Second, we will keep diversifying our trade with other partners of new customs procedures. Our hallmark is not only that we are the biggest market in the world, neither in the United States, but that we are reliable in Europe and predictable. So honor our strategy builds on three pillars. And that is exactly what our partners are looking for today. We are open to negotiations. And my third point, we will approach these negotiations double down on our single market. The single market is the cornerstone of European integration and value. From trade to technology to the size of our market, for growth, for prosperity,
but this
for
strength is
solidarity.
also built on our readiness to take
we have
firm
to tear down
countermeasures
remaining barriers
if
necessary.
to have a single market to
All
go
instruments
big
are on the
because
table.
scale matters.
Second,
And a single market
we will
to
keep
go fast
diversifying
and
our
to go
trade with
far.
other partners. You mentioned it, Antonio.
Now to the first point.
Our hallmark is not only
Our
that we are the
immediate
biggest market
response to
in the
tariffs,
world, is
but
unity
that we are reliable
and determination.
and predictable. We honor our
I have already
commitments.
been in contact with
And
our
that
heads of
is
state
exactly
and
what our
government on
partners
the
are
next
looking for
steps.
today.
We have this
And my third
parliamentary
point,
debate now here today.
We will double
we
down
will
on our
assess
single
tomorrow
market. The announcements
The single market
very
is the
carefully
cornerstone
to
of European
our
integration and
response.
values.
It's
Our
our powerful
objective
catalyst
is a negotiated
for growth,
solution.
for prosperity, for
But
solidarity.
of course, if need be,
we
we will
tear
protect
down
our
remaining
interests,
barriers,
our people, and our
to have a
companies.
single market to go big.
And I want to be
because
very
scale
clear
matters,
on the aim
and
of
a
our
single
response.
market to go fast.
We
and to
think
go
that
far.
this confrontation is in
Now
no
to the first
one's
point.
interest.
The flow
immediate
of goods and
response to
services
tariffs
between
is
us,
unity,
the United States
and
Europe,
determination.
is nearly balanced.
I have already been in
course we are
contact
willing
with our
to work
heads
on
of
the
state,
trade
of state and
balance of
government
goods,
on the next
as well
steps.
as on the trade
We have
balance
this
of
parliamentary
services.
debate now here
This
today.
is the largest
And we will
and most
assess
prosperous
tomorrow
trade
the announcements
relation
very
worldwide.
carefully to calibrate
We would
our
all be
response.
better off if we could find
Our
a constructive
objective
solution.
is a negotiated solution.
At the same time,
But
it
of
also
course,
has to
if
be
need
clear.
be, we will
Europe
protect
has not
our
started
interests,
this
our
confrontation.
people, and
we
our
do
companies.
not necessarily want to retaliate.
And I want to be very clear
but
on
if
the
it is
aim
necessary,
of our
we
response.
have a strong plan
We
to
think that this
retaliate,
confrontation
and we
is
will use
in
it.
no one's interest.
The second element
The
of
flow
our
of
strategy
goods and
is
services
diversification.
between us, the United
Trade
States and
goes
Europe,
to where the business
is
case
nearly
is.
balanced.
We
Of
will
course, we are
open
willing
doors
to work on the trade
towards
balance of
fast-growing
goods
markets
as
across
well
the world.
as on the trade balance of
Europe
services.
already has trade agreements in
This
place
is
with
the
76
largest
countries,
and most prosperous
and we are now
trade
growing
relation
this network
worldwide. We just
We would
concluded
all
trade
be better
deals
off
with
if we
Mercosur,
could find a
Mexico, and
constructive
Switzerland.
solution.
We launched the first
At the
ever
same time,
clean trade
it
and
also
investment
has to be
partnership
clear.
with South Africa.
Europe has not
We
started
aim to
this confrontation.
conclude a
We
trade
do
agreement
not
with
necessarily
India by
want
the end
to
of this year.
retaliate.
But
We
if
are
it
in
is
intense
necessary,
negotiations
we
with
have
Indonesia
a strong plan
and
to
Thailand.
retaliate, and we
later
will
this
use it.
week, President Costa and I will head to Samarkand.
The second element of
for
our
the first
strategy
ever
is
diversification.
summit between the European Union and
Trade
Central
goes
Asia.
to where the business
Europe
case
has
is.
always been a
We will
trading
open
continent.
doors
So
towards
let's
fast-growing
connect with the
markets
beating
across the
hearts
world.
of the global economy.
Europe already has
Our
trade
message
agreements
is
in
clear.
place with 76
Europe is reliable.
countries. Europe is
And we are now
predictable,
growing this network.
and Europe is open for business.
We just concluded trade deals with
And the third
Mercosur,
point, honourable
Mexico, and
members,
Switzerland.
is
We launched the
unchain
first
the single
ever
market.
clean trade and investment
There are
partnership
too many
with
obstacles
South
that
Africa.
tie down our
We aim
businesses.
to conclude a
And we
trade
have to do
agreement
our
with
homework.
India by the end of this year.
Mario Draghi is
We are in
right
intense
when he
negotiations
says
with
high
Indonesia
internal barriers
and Thailand
are far more
and later this
damaging
week,
for
President
growth
Costa and I
than
will
any
head to
tariff.
Samarkand.
And
For the first ever
the single market,
between
as
the
I said, was
European
born to
Union and
tear
Central
down
Asia.
barriers between the countries.
Europe has always
to
been
erase
a trading
customs and
continent.
duties.
So let's
And to make
connect
business
with the beating
inside the
hearts of the
European
global
Union
economy
as easy as
Our
possible.
message is clear.
So we must go
Europe
back
is
to
reliable,
that idea.
and
Europe is
fulfill it.
predictable.
and Europe
It must
is open
be easier for
business.
SMEs to sell the same product in
And the
all
third
member
point,
states,
honourable members,
instead
is
of relabeling
unchain
a
the
27
single
market.
times to comply with national
There
laws.
are too many obstacles that
It must
tie
be
down
easier
our
for
businesses.
professionals to work across
And we have to
borders
do our homework
instead of getting stuck with different
Mario
national
Draghi is
bureaucracies.
right when he says
It
high
must be
internal
easier for
barriers
tech
are
companies to
far
launch a
more
new service
damaging
all
for
across
growth
Europe
than any tariff.
instead of dealing with
End of
27
quote.
different procedures.
The single market,
I know,
as I said,
honourable
was
members,
born
that
to
the
tear
European
down
Parliament
barriers
has
between the
always worked
countries,
hard to complete
erase
the single
customs
market.
and duties,
Now we have the
and to make
generational
business
opportunity to get it
inside
done.
the European Union as easy
We have
as
a strong
possible.
consensus
So
on
we
the
must
Draghi
go back
and
to
Letta
that
report
idea
among
and
all of
fulfill
us.
it.
We have
It
put
must be
ambitious
easier for
proposals on the
SMEs
table
to sell
you
the
know it
same
from
product
the savings
in
and
all
investment
member
union
states
to ensure that people
instead
get
of
a better return on
relabeling
their
it
money,
27
but
times
also that
to
the
comply with
companies
national
find
laws.
the finances they need